I have just a couple slides on Detmer Chapter 8, talking specifically about the homeschool collaboration process, which is, as we all know, very critical to particularly helping our students with disabilities find success in school. So why is it so important? Well, there's a lot of reasons. We, first of all, have legal mandates, and whenever you have a mandate, you must do it, and the best way to do something that you have to do is in a collaborative fashion and have it be a positive experience on both ends. So we all know what our legal obligations are to students with special needs. But the benefits to the student, the family, and the educators are many when that collaborative process and that relationship is very positive. Obviously, student success is much more likely to occur when we're all kind of on the same page, working as a single team towards that goal. It provides lots of consistency. We often think of this first around students' behaviors, and we can work very hard on behavior programs at school, but if there's no consistency, obviously, at home with those kinds of plans, then we start at square one every morning of every school day. So that's just one example of how the relationship between the family and the school can provide the consistency that typically all children and even adolescents need to thrive. Having a partnership means that we learn from one another. We have the background information we need from one another. The more we know about the student and their strengths and their needs, the better we can work towards their greater success by building upon their strengths. So that partnership is just critical. And again, it allows us to gain all the expertise of the family members. We have to be careful of educators that we don't see families as some generic group of people, and we think more about what their backgrounds may be. So obviously, many of our family members are experts on lots of things, but again, if we hold kind of the perception that they are experts on their own children, that will get us a long way in forming a real relationship with them. In today's schools, it's critical to even think about what family means in our society as a whole, obviously. I do an exercise in one of my undergrad courses where I have students describe all the different kinds of manifestations we can list as far as the members of a family, who they could be, because the definition of a family is just two or more people who are serving the functions of being that support we all need to make it through life. So our families look very, very different. As teachers, we have to be cautious and constantly cognizant of that and not make statements like, well, tell your mom this or your dad that, or assumptions about family structures before we've really gotten to know all of our students and who in fact is their family. You know, who are the members of their close-knit group that support them in school. So knowing that about our students is critical, first of all. We often now have cultural linguistic diversity that we were not so aware of in the past, or we didn't have the same diversity in our schools that we do now. We still have pockets of areas, Western Pennsylvania being one of them, where diversity continues to be pretty limited, but in many of our schools, the diversity is incredible. The number of languages in a single building is incredible, and the percentage of students who are not, the typical kids that we used to think of as the majority population, which no longer is in many cases, is astounding. And so what the different cultural values and language differences bring to our collaborative process is a lot of roadblocks potentially because of the really deeply ingrained and often hidden differences in the way we're perceiving things or the roles that we think people should play. So it's critical to look at that and get to know our families better. They're our best source of understanding differences very often. And then I mentioned on the first set of slides in this module about parenting and really having respect and consideration and acknowledgement for what it might be like to parent a special needs child if that hasn't been our experience. and recognizing that, many of these parents, depending on their child's disability specifically, have had a lot of different struggles. Some financial because of the special needs. There are parents of children, for example, with ASD who rarely sleep because of their children's difficulty with sleeping at night. Medically fragile children, on and on. Behavior issues. So we really need to think about what it might be like to be in the shoes of the parent of the student with special needs as we work on this partnership with them. And then I've already alluded there to several family stressors. All family have stressors, all families, excuse me, but families of students with special needs, those are compounded very often in a variety of ways. So we know how difficult parenting a special needs child is when we look at, the divorce rate among parents of children with significant disabilities, for example. So really being aware of the family stressors and the impact that that can have upon every member of that family that we are trying to partner with, and having some compassion for all of the things that they're dealing with while we're focused on school alone. The way to develop a homeschool partnership, it's very much common sense. And we talk about this when we talk about kind of examining our own cultural awareness. First of all, figuring out, what are my personal values and how do I maybe impose those on others or expect those of others without even realizing it. So starting kind of looking in, and then working hard to build some kind of collaborative relationship very proactively. One of the schools I worked in, the principal required, and it wasn't an elementary school, it was a middle school, so these were teachers with many students, but he required every teacher to make contact with every student's family within the first 9 weeks of the school year. And by that, he was requesting a simple phone call or an email, something that just said, I am your student's teacher this year. I'm looking forward to working with them. Some positive communication long before there be ever a need for any sort of other communication. Again, we all know that very often the first time parents hear from the school is around some kind of difficulty. So being proactive about building a relationship before there's real issues to deal with and there's no relationship there to work from. Initiating those interactions I just mentioned, individualizing for families, recognizing that as different as all of our students are, so are their families. And then really taking a look at what am I doing and how's it working? So what can I do differently? How's this collaboration really taking form? Is it being very positive or not? And what might I do about it? And then helping families really become more active participants in collaborating around their children all of the time, and particularly when it's time to work on their IEP. This chapter has a lot of great lists, checklists, different kinds of forms you can refer to that really kind of illuminate best practice in this process. That could be very helpful. Sometimes we don't want to get too formal about things, but we can certainly use these kinds of resources to make sure that we're really doing everything we can to make this as positive a partnership as possible.